radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Today is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. I cannot wait for tonight's show to kick off. Oh, no, we just started it. Tonight, Kelly Sullivan Walden is with us. And tonight, I just call the show Tragic into Magic, and completely plagiarized and stolen from Kelly. But that's what the show was about tonight. And I know as I set this up before I bring Kelly in, she's the dream expert, right? The dream doctor, Dr. Dream. But tonight, tiny little bit about dreams. But tonight, we're going to talk about her new book. It's called A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, The Art of Transforming the Tragic into Magic. The link for the book is below. I have been reading it. It's you know what? Enough of that. Kelly's great. The book is great. The link is below. We know everything that she's been doing in the media and her website and her podcast over the years. She's one of the most respected authors and dream experts out there. But the new book, and I'll let Kelly describe it to you. This is a personal journey. This is a personal journey. There are a couple of dreams in the book, but it's a series of life's essays. And I hope I'm putting that, terming that correctly. So with that, let's just get straight to it and say, welcome, Kelly Sullivan Walden. How are you doing? And you've got yourself muted. You need to unmute. Some things I don't have control of.
How's that? Am I back with you?
Yeah, you're here. Welcome back. It's it's always amazing when you're with us. But before we get started, how were the holidays, Dana? Everything else in your life? Great.
Life is good. It's been a really busy beginning of the new year with this book coming out, and it's really good. I mean, it's been not like, normally the beginning of the year is kind of mellow. This was like, bam, here we go, rock and roll. Let's do this.
No doubt.
It's good to be with you, though, Jimmy.
You do mention in the book, which I thought was, again, this is all personal. This is a pretty gnarly insight, right? You let it all hang out. But you say in the book, man, I've been just like everybody else, locked down, haven't seen my family in a year. I had this happen and this happened and this happened. I'm dealing with this, and so are all of you. Wow, right? But I think 2023, finally, we get to enjoy, try to get back to normal, if that's the right way to put it, right?
Back to black, back to normal, right?
Black. Oh, that's funny.
I think so.
Ken, I want to share one thing with you about dreams, really quick.
Please, God.
Over the weekend, I had this crazy dream, and now check this out. I'm just going to lay it out there. I woke up. I've been grounding, so I wake up. I don't know if you know what grounding is. We won't get into that, but I've been grounding at night. And so when I wake up in the morning, my dreams, they're because you go into such a deep sleep when you ground, everything's like really vivid and technicolor, and it's fun. But I've been remembering things. So anyway, I was in Miami over the weekend, and I woke up. I went, that was the craziest dream ever. And this was the dream. I was at a party, and I'm walking around at the party, asking everybody this question. If the world blew up 30 days after you died, how would you feel? All right.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was going around, person after person after person at this party, just upsetting everybody, apparently. And now I have no idea where that came from. And I'm thinking about it. So then after that, after I woke up, had breakfast, and then I went to where I was going, Billy Carson's house. And it was early. There was, 5 or 10 of our friends were there early in the day. And I said, man, I got to tell you guys about this dream that I had. And so I hit everybody with that question. Same reaction that you just did. Whoa. What? And I got everybody thinking. And yeah, crazy.
What did they say? What did they say?
Man, I think everybody went into a little bit of self-reflection, just like I was, right? Where that's not a question I don't think is easily answered, right? It's there. That's a mind experiment. That's a thought experiment right there.
It definitely is. I think in dreams, when we have a very specific question, when there's a quote, because often in dreams it's kind of nebulous and things are hard to pin down, but when there's a specific word or a specific phrase, it bears repeating. It means that there's something there, because the dreams are typically, they take place with the visual cortex. So to hear something and to say something, that's very special. And so I think it is worth going down the rabbit hole on that question. I know what it brings up for me, but I want to know what it brings up for you first, and then I'll weigh in on if it were my dream, what it means.
And I've thought about it quite a bit. And I think it reflects back. It's a definite philosophical move on the head, right? It's a definite thing there. And so is it about, this is how I've tried to resolve it in my own mind. Is it about, should you care about,
there we go.
Right? Should you care about the now, right now, because 30 days after you're gone, there's nothing here. So do you focus on the now, right? And those that are around you, do you focus on that? Because, right? And it's such a heavy thought, because we're supposed to care about the planet.
7 generations past.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Beyond us. And so this kind of changes all of that. Well, I'm kind of chomping at the bit. In one of the stories in my book that we're talking about, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, I think you'll dig this one. And we might have even talked about this on a previous show, because this is one of my favorite stories about my death experience, when I had a mini death experience, as contrasted by Daniel Brinkley's, hour-long death experiences. I was only on the other side for about 15 minutes. And all I know is from that experience, I felt such grace, such peace, such okayness about everything. So I think if I died and then I found out later that the world exploded or was just, it ceased to be, I think from a being on the other side perspective, it would be like, okay, well, that was fun. We did what we came here to do. It's okay. Because the whole message that I got from the other side was suffering is equated to the amount of attachment I have. And if I can be detached and still present, still fully show up, fully love with my whole heart, but not be attached, then there's bliss possible no matter what. And everything has an expiration date, including this planet. So
Right.
That's okay. It just means, well, whatever time we have left here, let's make the most of it. Let's not squander it living in fear. Let's not squander it, contemplating our navels and the navel of the neighbor next door. Let's what matters most? If this time is really limited, then let's knock it off. Let's stop being knuckleheads. Let's get on with really doing what we came here to do. So I would, as somebody who likes to turn the tragic into magic, I feel like the magic of this dream is that it feels like just do what you came here to do, love with your full heart. And because this, as much as I loved being on the other side and I didn't want to come back here, I realized that back here in this dimension, this is a precious realm. This is something that I believe we all chose to come here for a period of time to learn some things. And maybe we're not done. And maybe we will, at some point, this playground won't be here anymore for us. But perhaps the best way to be here is like it's Disneyland. We don't want to miss a thing. We want to.
Yeah. That's and yes. And here's the, to turn around and look at something like that when you unpack it. One of the first things is, well, the petty stuff just doesn't matter. You may have a butthead friend that gets on your nerves, but they're still your friend. The petty stuff just doesn't matter. There's that, and to not waste time with negative vibes, right? Don't stay with positive things around you, because you just never know, right? And to have wasted precious time on negative, trivial stuff, right? And here's the thing, right? So consciousness, I believe, is non-physical, right?
Yeah.
When we die, that's not the end. That's just the beginning, right? So what you don't want to do, let's say you die 30 days later, asteroid hits, planet blows up, whatever happens, right? And it's over. Your conscious self, right? You don't want to bump in to the soul out there that you were not cool with, right? Man, you remember that time you were talking that shit, and then so you don't want that. So clean it up. And also those out there, Kelly, and you bring up this, and I want to get to this quote from Joseph Campbell that you start off the book with. It is so on point, even with what we're talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
Which is this: you don't want to be that soul traveling the universe, right, after everything is over with, going, man, that time on Earth was kind of fun, but I sure did waste a lot of time being a dick. You don't want to be that either, right? You just don't. You don't want to waste your time. Going to this quote. This is Joseph Campbell, and I love this. It is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life. Where you stumble, there lies your treasure. Whew, man, that is strong.
Isn't that great? That kind of says it all. Mic drop there. Just he also says the cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. So let's go after these things that scare us most. Let's dive in. Let's go in with our full heart, because then there's nothing, we can live fearlessly. And when we go after it, we turn the table on it, we ogle it or ogle it, then it shrinks. It's like we discover that it's all just a little man behind a curtain. It's not the great and powerful Oz that we thought it was. That's what I believe. And I think you were saying something about this. One of the things that I think is so true is we are 1% physical, maybe 0.001% physical. The rest of us, our nature is non-physical. So if everything that is physical was to be destroyed, it's kind of like losing our pinky toe,
right?
Or our pinky, the nail, our pinky toenail, not even the pinky toe, just the nail. And it's like, okay, well, that was precious. And what else? And that's, I think, the moment that we pass over and we experience this sometimes in dreams. That's why death and dreams are so correlated, because we experience the non-physical aspect of who we are. We explore dimensions that are harder to explore when we're just fixated on this particular dimension, this three-dimensional reality. But we get to expand, and it's so cool. So we just need to remember that when we go on the other side, we're gonna have a lot of relief. We're gonna feel a lot of gratitude. We're gonna love it. But we want to stay here as long as we can and enjoy and do what we came here to do.
Well, and with such a strong statement, like, turning tragic into magic, right? Right there, right? That set of words says so much, because if we look at and we all do this, including myself, you look at the romance of time travel, right? The romance of it, that, oh man, if I could just go back and fix that stuff, get that long lost love from 8th grade, whatever it is, right? Right. The romance of time travel. If you go and you change one little thing, then your children aren't born today, right?
Right.
The thing. So no, those things, those tragedies, or whatever it is from your past, made you who you are today. Why would you change anything?
Right. Yeah. I think it's really flipping it. I love, there's a Cheryl Strayed quote. I wish I could remember it exactly. It's something about how people lament not getting better cards. And she said, but that's not the job to wish you had other cards. It's to play the cards you're dealt. Play those puppies with all your might. Don't, like, hello, you've got some cards that you've been handed. Deal with those. Make them awesome. We've got a lot more it's just the human condition is such a conundrum. We always, it's so typical that we want what we don't have, and then we take for granted what we do have. And if we were really awake, if we just woke up, took whatever, the red or the green or the red pill, whatever that is, we would say, oh my God. It'd be like Jimmy Stewart at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. What? I get this? Oh my God. This is cool. Let's milk it for all it's worth.
I was in Miami over the weekend, and Billy Carson and I, we did a couple of live streams in his studio. And in one of the live streams where we were talking about, look, we all go through hard stuff, right? But it's still who we are today, and don't, take that and work with it. He starts crying. He's talking about his experience. And this is Billy Carson, right? I'm sitting next to him, and blah, blah, blah. But here's what he was trying to say. As bad as it was, and it was bad, I had a dream. I had a vision. And at that point in my life, there was nobody there that's willing to help somebody that's got nothing. And I wasn't looking for a handout. And I realized that it's just me that's going to push through this, and it's how you take tragic and turn it into magic, and I wasn't about to let myself go, fully naked at that point and start talking about my past.
Why not?
But well, we were discussing that earlier, right? In that everybody is dealing with stuff. There's nobody out there. There's no. There's nobody out there that has lived a perfect life, that hasn't had its share of setbacks and things and sadness and whatever you want to call it. But it builds to who you are today. So don't go back and change anything. Why would you? Just ride through it.
Absolutely. And if there's anything that, it seems like there's a process of coming into this world as these perfect, innocent, beautiful little babies. And then we all get our hearts broken. I've had my heart smashed a bunch of times, and I list not all of them, but many of them in this book. But with every heartbreak, there's some, it's like part resilience, part protectiveness, that we develop some strategy for coping if we survive. And that coping mechanism can sometimes become like a mask. We become really funny, we become really cool, we become really smart, we become really avoidant, we become really domineering, whatever it is, we become something to cope. And then at some point, that coping mechanism stops working. It either starts to become kind of like used car salesman-ish, where it just sort of repels people, or it works so well that we maybe achieve all the things that we want, but we have this profound imposter syndrome. That was kind of, I kind of had a little bit of both of those, where it's just like my facade is cracking, it's breaking. And then at that point, that's usually the crisis point, where people, if they're going to check out, that's usually the place where they do it, because they realize they can't go back to who they were, and their mask, their coping mechanism isn't working. So what's the point of being here? And I reached that point several times in my book. I talk about wanting to just not be here anymore. But those are also those moments where, if we're wise, we'll hit our knees, we'll fall into a place of surrender, where we make a demand of the universe: show me something, give me some kind of a sign so I can stay here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we sincerely ask, then we're sincerely given something. And that's usually when some form of grace takes place, where we step out and we realize it's like the Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones walking across that invisible bridge, where we don't know how we're going to make it. But if we keep putting a foot in front of the other, we do. And it seems like there's this place where, there's the crisis, which is the cracking of the mask. And then there's the tragic, and the magic is the mask is cracking, and we don't want to live forever with that mask. We want to return back to our innocence, but with the wisdom of a mature adult. And that's what's possible for all of us. But it makes sense that we would defend our masks and not tell anybody about what's underneath them, because we want to be loved, we want to be accepted. And so much of my life was so much about the facade and wanting to get the respect, the approval, the love, the adoration, or whatever, at whatever cost. And it was kind of like, who cares about what's authentic under there? I don't care, as long as I get the outer stuff. But then at some point, it's like, wow, so all this love is really people loving me, but they're not loving the real me.
No,
oh my God.
They're loving the representative.
The representative, exactly.
Yeah.
But it takes.
You write in the book, I'm not going to give it away, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here.
Okay.
But you write in the book, you've got a journalist, and you're excited. She's coming over to interview you, right? Okay, right? You've arrived. And so she comes over, everything's cool, right? You guys, she's hip. She's a hippie. She's hip. And
she's the hippie.
And you guys are doing your thing. And then later in the, and so you've got the house all, you've got the representative mask on, right? And then she goes, well, tell me about the time when you robbed the bank with Patty Hearst, right? And you're like, what? How do you know that? Now, I'm paraphrasing. You can tell the real story later, but now she's behind the mask, and you are at that crossroads of like, well, crap, am I going to discuss the real me, or am I going to keep the mask on? And how was that a relief of pressure when you have that?
Oh my God. No, it was horrible, because I wasn't prepared for it. So what she asked was
later after she
later. So in hindsight, now I'm so grateful for her. So it's what I opened the book with, and she asks me, so, tell me, like, why are nightmares so great? And I say something about how nightmares are helping us to come to peace with the parts of ourselves we don't love, so that we're capable of living these fearless lives. And she says, so is that how you feel about your past as a pole dancer? And I'm like, what? Oh my God, what are you? Oh, like I pulled a William Shatner on her. I can't believe you. And all of that. It was like, I literally wanted to die. I turned every shade of every color. and wanted to find a hole, dig myself into it. And I asked her how she knew this, because that was, I thought, buried in the closet and only a few people knew. And she said that she had been to a 12-step women's meeting that I had been to years and years before. And I'm like, and she heard me talk about that in a very, very, small, what I thought was an anonymous group, and apparently not. So it was a breach of 12-step protocol. But at the time, so this, I think, is what's important. I wasn't prepared to be called out. And I asked her not to print it because I was working with school kids at the time. And I know, like, in schools, there's, they're super careful about what like, if you have a background, a criminal record, for example, or if you've done anything quasi questionable, like, you can't work with kids. So I thought, oh my God, this is going to ruin all this good work that I've started to do. Please don't mention it. Even though at the beginning of the interview, she said, is there anything off limits? I said, no, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. Famous last words, except with Jimmy Church. Jimmy Church, you can ask me anything at this point. But here's the thing. I realized at the end of that story, and I ogle it, but if anybody's going to tell my story, it's going to be me. I don't want somebody else telling it. So for the years between, so that was about 5 years ago that happened. And it's taken me up until now to have written my stories myself. So now I stand here today, having done the work, the integration work, to love my shadows, to practice what I preach truly, to take every single part of my past that I thought was horrific, it would cause everybody to run for the hills, get me kicked off the island, burned at the stake, all of those things. I've taken every one of those stories and written them to the place where I feel like I've turned my broken heart into art. I feel like these have become something that now I wouldn't want to live through any of these things ever, and I wouldn't wish any of them on my worst enemy, but I'm glad that I lived through them, and I'm grateful that I'm still alive and that I learned so much. And in fact, all the wisdom I have isn't from the books I've read, isn't from what the greatest teachers in the world that I've had a chance to interview, like you have, Jimmy, but it's from my own heartbreaks, the wisdom that I learned in the School of Hard Knocks. And I think that's where we get the best stuff, except we get into a state of sort of suspended animation, can I say that 10 times fast? When there isn't the alchemy, when we just take this thing that seems so horrible and we put it in the closet, it doesn't become wisdom when it's in the closet. But when we really pull it out and look at it, then all of a sudden I think it's transformative. And that's where I found that study that talked about PTG, how most people know about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but few people know about PTG, which is this possibility for all of us to go through a difficult time and come out better on the other end. But it takes us really owning our circumstance, owning our life, owning what we've been through, and not denying it, putting it off, blaming it on somebody else. But that's when we can actually come through it better than we were when we went in.
Post-traumatic growth was a huge subject this weekend. I was with a bunch of friends, and PTG, post-traumatic growth, big topic of a conversation. Talked about it all weekend long with numerous people, and I found it fascinating that these studies that have come out that the number's 50%, right?
Yeah.
50% of people that have gone through something traumatic come out of the other side better, learned, right? And have had a positive growth situation after that.
Right.
Yeah.
And usually, I mean, it's in some way it correlates with the work that Barbara Marx Hubbard was doing, that was talking about the theory of the dissipation of structures, basically about transformation, using the metaphor of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. And most of us assume that every caterpillar that melts down into goo eventually gets its wings. But not every caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Some of the caterpillars end right there in that puddle of goo. And it's like us, it's not guaranteed that we're going to have PTG when we go through something, that we're going to grow and develop wings as a result of it. We have to do some things. And some of the study talks about the people that move toward their difficulty, that go into therapy, that look for the good, that look for the growth, then they tend to find it. But there's some people, we have the choice. We can go through something horrific and become embittered by those situations.
Yeah,
I say,
victim, I'm a victim, and you want to point fingers and blame, and which is a complete waste of time, by the way, no matter what. And it's those that aren't choosing to go down that path, then there is an opportunity there for them. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But I think there's and I agree with you, but part of my Ogle formula, which is how I suggest and how I practice it, this is what I teach my clients, is how to get through to transform our tragic into magic, is first we need to give ourselves permission to be in the in the what's offensive, we can give ourselves that time to be in the pain. I mean, we can't just completely gloss over it. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and some of us are too quick to gloss over it and to be like, I'm fine. Nope, I'm good. And then there's all this scar tissue that we hold on to, and then some of us hold on to the pain maybe a little too long, and it's maybe the human race is divided into two camps. Some of us glossing over too quickly, some of us holding on a little too long. But whatever it is, we need some time to be real with the pain, because let's face it, I mean, the shock is real and the pain is real. I know in the last few years, I lost, one of the things I talk about is all the loved ones I've lost in the last few years. And even though I've had a death experience and I know how glorious it is on the other side, that doesn't stop my heart from breaking when my dogs died, when my best friends died. I just was like, even though I know what's on the other side and I know that they're so lucky to be there, I couldn't help but my heart just breaking. And I had to give myself that.
Grief is tough. I mean, it's just tough. It's tough. And some people deal with it in certain ways.
Yes.
The other day, I'm not going to dwell on this at all, but I was in my kitchen. I was standing at the sink and I went, man, everybody around me is dead, right? And I was like, going down the list, right? I was like, you know, and I know it's my age. You know, you don't have this stuff go down when you're 5 and 6 years old. But I'm just like, my dad, my brother, my mom, my this, my father, my mother. Oh man,
Right.
and some people just deal with it. Grief is a heavy thing that sometimes can take years.
Well, yeah, there's the study that says that most people in the survey, the study was done on widows that grieve, and they said it takes between 3 to 8 years to mourn, to grieve a traumatic loss, unless people actively participate in moving through the grief. And one of the things I suggest that we do is in the moments that we feel those waves of grief. I mean, I've lost a million, I don't know about a million, but I've lost a lot of deep loved ones. So when those moments come up where we're just feeling it, we need to give ourselves that permission, but then go through the Ogle process. Should I say what it is, just since I keep bringing up Ogle?
Yeah, you know what? We got way ahead of our skis, didn't we? We had a plan.
Go back. We had a plan, Jimmy.
We had a plan, which we're 30 minutes into the show and none of it is
like the quickie. I want to just say this one thing, because
okay.
When I think about, for example, I think about my best friend Gypsy, who passed away, and that was a couple years ago. And I think about what's offensive about that is that I had plans for us in our life. I mean, I planned on having her around until we're 90, and I like, what do I do with all that? And plus I just miss her in the day to day. But what's good about it? So I go into the G for what's good about it is oh my God, well, I had her for all the years that I did. I have somebody worth missing. I to have, to have loved and lost is better than not to have loved at all. And to, and I still have an angel on the other side. So I have to give myself permission to grieve being the O, what's offensive, but in the G, what's good about this is I'm so lucky to have had somebody like her. And she shows up all the time. It's kind of like invasive a little, but it's awesome. And then the L is for the looking glass. How do I ghost myself? How do I go in and out of being present? How am I not fully alive? Sometimes when I'm dwelling on the things that aren't worthy of my attention, I'm the one that is the grim reaper of my own life. And then the E is for elevate. That's how will I live a more elevated life as a result of this pain? Well, I'm going to be more present with the ones I love. And when I do notice her busting through, I want to really recognize it and appreciate it and take it in instead of just being like, oh, that was cool, whatever, moving on. I mean, there's so many moments that I could just take it in. So I think it's important to acknowledge the sadness and the fact that we're old enough to lose people. Like, some people don't have that. They check out too early. So there's a lot to be grateful for.
That is one of the best points. If you're still around to be bummed out,
yeah,
you're ahead of the game, man. You're ahead of the game. And
yeah.
I actually have had that thought, right? And it could definitely be the other way around. And so you're absolutely right. We need to really stop and appreciate the fact that we have the opportunity to think about and have the memories, right? It could be the other way around. It's really that simple.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get back to the game plan, Coach.
Put me in, Coach.
Yes, let's get your writing style. And I've noticed this. I've got so many of your books, right? Your writing style is just always so cool. I know you well enough that the way that you converse, the way that you speak, and who you are, this glowing ray of sunshine that you are, but it always comes across in your writing. And this doesn't disappoint, but it had me cracking up in that I can hear it in your own voice. Oh, by the way, everybody, I have the first couple of chapters of the audio book in her voice, so I've got that going for me too. But the way we're going to talk about Persephone. And so when I didn't know where you were going with this. And there was, you said something in the very, okay, first off, who she is and that part of mythology and her story, your typical, Greek tragedy, I might add, or something like that. But it could have been written in, no, you wrote it in your voice with so anyway, so I'm reading through, and then we're going to get to Persephone. But you said this. You go. So you said something like, so she whiffs the flower, and you said the flower's narcotic roofie-esque effect. I went back and read. She didn't just do that. Okay. We got a different version of Persephone that's about to be laid out here. So why take this approach? And why did you choose Persephone to set up the book?
Well, I have always been a fan of the Greek myths and the goddesses, and of all the Greek goddesses, the one that I relate to the most is Persephone. And for people who don't know which one she is, she's actually known as the triple goddess because she starts off kind of like what we were talking about earlier. She starts off all innocent. She's the maiden. She's frolicking through the meadow with butterflies landing on her shoulder. Everything is just hunky-dory. She's cartwheeling. It's just fabulous. And little does she know that Hades is stalking her. He, god of the underworld, is watching her, and he's waiting for his moment. And it was the moment that she gets the whiff. And I won't tell the whole story. I will, but she gets abducted. She gets pulled into the underworld by Hades' scaly hand, and her life on Earth is over. And Demeter, her mother, who was the helicopter parent, she puts out a all points bulletin. She turns the world to ice. There's no more harvest until you bring back my daughter. But meanwhile, Persephone is in the underworld, and she's running and trying to hide and just like, ew, gross. Oh my God, what is this place? Ew, ew, ew. And Hades is like, honey, I own this place. You can run, but you can't hide. So I want you to be my queen. And she's like, ew, I'm a virgin. And he doesn't care. He does everything. He rapes her, whatever, all the stuff that happens in the underworld. It's bad. But eventually she says, well, if you can't beat him, join him. Kind of like Patty Hearst. She becomes queen of the underworld and says, well, if you can't beat him, join him. So she learns the tarot. She learns all about the dark arts. And she's like, this is kind of cool. I mean, I didn't seek out to learn these things, but while I'm here, when in Rome, I might as well learn about psychic phenomenon and all this stuff. And so she becomes kind of a badass down there. And the moment she's comfortable, the moment she's found her groove, is the moment that Demeter makes the bargain with Zeus, the father of all that sees everything. She's like, Zeus, I know you know where Persephone is because you know where everybody is. So bring her back, or there will be no more food on Earth. That means no humans to worship you. And Zeus is like, oh, you got me there. That's my only weak spot. I need people to worship me. So, all right, Hades, you got to give Persephone back. So Persephone comes back as she's all kind of gothed out.
Apollo goes down.
Apollo goes down on his winged chariot, rescues her, brings her back up to Earth, but she's discombobulated. So she's not the innocent girl she once was. She's no longer queen of darkness. Who is she? So there's a period of time of disequilibrium until she eventually finds her way into owning, oh, I am all of the above. So she's three goddesses for the price of one. She is innocence perpetually. She is the queen of darkness perpetually.
But you left out the key, though. Hold on. See,
yes, hit it.
Pomegranates. It's always it's always the pomegranates, man.
Yes, so right before Apollo sets her off on his winged chariot, Hades is like, oh, you must be hungry. It's been a while since you've eaten. Let me give you a few, 6 pomegranate seeds. And she's like, I'm famished. Give me those. So she gobbles them up. And bingo, she didn't read the fine print because nobody ever told her that you can't eat anything in the underworld. Otherwise, you are tied to the underworld forever. So Hades got her. So she is supposed to come back every 6 months. And basically, this is how we get our seasons. It used to be perpetual springtime on Earth, but because of Persephone's abduction and her return, we have all the seasons that we have today. So I resonate with her because to me, she's deep, and she knows innocence. I mean, I feel like there's a part of me that relates to the Disney princesses. Like, I like happy things. I like butterflies. I like springtime. And I've also done my tour of duty many times in the land of shadows. And I have found my way out. Some people get stuck down there. And Persephone's job is to help take the ones who've been stuck down there and help show them the way out. That's what I do as a therapist. That's why people bring their nightmares to me, because I can see the path that those nightmares are illuminating. And also there's the people who are stuck in the upper world that have never even dipped their toe into the darkness. And I also say, hey, come here, take a look at this. You're missing out. Ha ha. It's like, to me, she's just kind of the whole thing. She's the deep dish goddess. And I love her. So she's kind of the patron saint of my book. I begin the book and end the book with Persephone.
Now, and there's so many. There's like an Aesop's fable here, right?
Mhm.
Or a tragic Greek
Yeah.
story, which is this: no matter what, when you're walking down the street and you see somebody and you think to yourself, it's she lives a perfect life. Look at her or him, right?
Mhm.
Look at
Look at
oh
everybody.
yeah, oh no.
Yeah.
Everybody has got their thing, and in Persephone's case, man, I mean, she got dragged down, by Hades. Now we perceive her a certain way, right? Frolicking in the mist, right? Butterflies,
Right.
all
Right.
of that. I love the cartwheels, by the way, right?
Yeah.
But look what she carries with her, and everybody has that. So, just don't judge, and
Right.
don't think that somebody else has got it all good because they've got the same story as you do. No matter how bad you think it is, they also have the same things.
Right. And that's one of the things that I love having put this book out in the world, which was very scary to do, by the way. It was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I was having heart palpitation. Still having heart palpitations, but I'm finding that with it out in the world, people are kind of revealing their secrets to me too. Kind of like what happens on the date that I write.
Yeah, right, and let's get into the palpitations are because of me. I get that,
Because Jimmy
you know,
Church, right?
yeah, you just got to work through it, Kelly. You got to work through it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ooh,
You
right.
Um, I'm looking at the clock, so we're going to get straight to this because there is again, this is written in the way that you get your brain out, right, and get this written. I love that part of it because you've got this chapter called. I'm just gonna. It's published now, so I can say it. My nitty gritty shitty list, and we all have one, don't we? We do. We all have one. When you decided, let's talk about this first date.
I have to say I thought about something I heard Marianne Williamson say years ago where she said when somebody was asking her about how much do you tell people about yourself, and she said, if they're gonna pass, let them pass early instead of
Yeah,
like y- like hooking people along with all the razzle dazzle, all the oh, here's the best thing and the best thing, and then you're in a few years down the line, and then you're like, kablam! Here's the truth. Ah, why didn't you tell me? I mean, why not just lay it all out right at the beginning? And if somebody wants to pass, let them pass early. Okay, so
yeah, and
redo this, Jim.
with Marianne, I remember
Yeah,
speaking to her once. She ran for office. She ran for governor, right? Was it governor? What
she
is
ran for president.
or president? That's what it was. So she's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And you and I were there when anyway, it doesn't matter. So
yeah.
I was like, are you a little nervous? I mean, because you've got you in our community, and then you've got the you in our community that is about to get exposed to everybody as you're running for office, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
what do you do? Do you just put that in your CV out of the gate as you're running for office? Running for president because it's going to come out. And I remember reading some things in
Mhm.
the press about her where they were going, after the spiritual side and the community
Yeah.
side of things. I thought, man, that's just not fair. They're trying to paint this picture because she is so smart and so well spoken.
Oh God.
But
Yeah.
so what do you
Also pragmatic as well. I mean,
do?
for being such a spiritual teacher and leader, she's incredibly grounded. And yeah, she speaks from A Course in Miracles, which I think is amazing. But she gets to the spiritual and she gets to the nitty-gritty pretty well. I mean, and she talks about how the founders of our country were very spiritual. And I mean, it takes people with vision to be able to run a country. And I don't want to get all political here because I don't want to be in that divisive kind of place, but I think she's amazing.
Yeah, it was. I was like, man, I'm proud, and everything but I thought you're just right.
I was so proud of her, and I hope she runs again. I mean, I think she might, and I would support her.
Well, it's a
That's
different
my 2
world.
cents.
See, it's a different world now, though, because when she ran before, this was before
Yeah.
the UFO conversation and before the universe conversation and before the spiritual no, that was a different thing going on when she ran last time, which was what now? Almost 8 years ago.
That was 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's a different.
Yeah.
No, she would be perceived differently.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
But
So and anyway, my nitty-gritty shitty list.
Yes.
Let's just jump right into you. First date. I don't know how you got this guy at the table or how this first date happened.
Well, this is really the only fictional part of this. This is kind of just to imagine, because shall I just read a little bit here?
Absolutely. Go.
So, well, it starts off with, you might be wondering, what in God's name am I, a white 54-year-old woman from a middle-class family in the US living in the 21st century doing, writing a book with the word crisis in the title. My Irish ancestors, survivors of the potato famine, would scoff in their grave. Ah, what does our girl know about crisis? Ancestry aside, let's pretend you and I are on a first date in a lovely restaurant, seated at a window-side booth, and we just ordered dinner. As we sip floral wine from crystal glasses, you look across the table, past the red rose in the vase and the flickering candle, smiling as you innocently say, "So, tell me about yourself." I clear my throat, dab the cloth napkin to my lips, take a breath, look you intently in the eye, and reply, "Ah, thanks. I'm happy to. Yeah, Jimmy, there are a few things you should know about me if we're going to have a relationship beyond this date. First, I'll get my nitty-gritty shitty list out of the way. As I reach into my purse, I say, I've prepared a document for just such an occasion."
I have it right here.
Right. You watch spellbound as I unfurl a very, very long scroll from my purse, clear my throat again, and read aloud. While I pursued acting in my 20s, I had over 100 indecent #MeToo-esque propositions. One of those led to me becoming a stripper in a bikini bar for a year. And then I was robbed 5 times, was physically assaulted and nearly raped 4 times, was in 3 car accidents, contemplated suicide twice, was mauled by dogs once, jumped off a 60-foot high cliff and landed ass first in the water, bounced checks, dropped out of college, shoplifted, dabbled in eating disorders. I used to be irresistibly drawn to dysfunctional relationships where I was lied to, manipulated, conned, cheated, rejected, stalked, forced to file restraining orders, was up close and personal with the mafia. No longer, by the way. All of this has led me to become a commitment phobe with a messianic complex, an insecure, codependent workaholic in grief over the recent-ish death of over a dozen loved ones, including 2 lifelong best friends, Teresa and Gypsy, and most recently my lapdogs and constant companions, Lola and Priya. But my biggest heartbreak was the death of a baby I was scheduled to adopt. And in the time it took me to tell you all this, I've had one of the 50 hot flashes I'll experience today. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'm going to the little girl's room. And if you're still here when I return, maybe you'll tell me about you.
And to do that, Did you make a decision to do it, or did this just come out of the process and then it just flowed out? Because that's a big step. That's a big step.
I think the writing process, I mean, I've done every healing modality known to humankind, and I don't think there is a healing modality more powerful than writing. So I'm a big advocate. I teach a class for people that are wanting to heal via the stories that they write, because I found that yes, dream work is powerful, but couple that with writing, it's amazing. So I think I first just wrote the stories. Thank you to that reporter. That was definitely a trigger for me to write my stories. But I think when we write, we don't do it for anybody else but us. It's just kind of journaling. And then there's a small group of people that I share my work with every week. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, you guys, I'm going to read this to you, but you're going to freak out. Okay, put on your big girl panties. You're going to like put a bubble around yourself so you can handle it. And sometimes I think they're going to say, okay, yeah, don't ever publish that. But after I read this piece, they were like, you've got to publish that. That, like, it's just, I don't know. So it felt like it had me, but there was something in the writing of it that also took the power away, because all of these things by themselves felt like they were marks against me. I mean, literally, I've had dreams where I was being run out of town with people holding torches and rakes, and I'm sure I burnt at the stake in other lifetimes. So the idea of coming out is terrifying, because it hits some PTSD that's still in there. But the writing of it, there's something about writing that makes things right. It's like it kind of felt like it turned to gold in some way. Like, wow, this doesn't have the power it used to have over me. I mean, the fact that I'm not completely blushing, I'm not completely fuchsia right now is kind of a miracle. It means that, yeah, I showed you mine, now show me yours. And if you want to, because we all have to come to sharing our secrets in our own time. But I think this is the work that our dreams are trying to help us do. They're trying to help us heal those things that are in our closet. And I think if we can do some work by day to help that process along, then it's like we're kind of working hand in hand with our dreams, so that we can flesh all that stuff out, so that we can get present tense with our lives. So I feel like it's hard to admit these things. There must be some other self-esteem in me that knows I'm not completely a piece of trash. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to reveal it. So I think, if I thought I was those things and that was all that I was, I wouldn't be able to say. I wouldn't be able to reveal it. I'd say, no, I'm perfect. What are you talking about? I would have to deflect. But I think in the writing of it, I was able to see, wow, I'm proud of myself. Just like there's this scar for anybody who's watching. I have one of the stories in the book is about me getting mauled by a bull mastiff, and you can still sort of see the scar on my wrist.
Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on.
Okay, it's small at this point. Okay, it's right. It's kind of an indentation.
Oh, yeah.
So I wouldn't trade this for anything. Like if somebody said, oh, let me help you get rid of that scar, I'd be like, no, that's mine. I lived through that. Can you believe it? I mean, it's kind of like a badge of honor in some strange way. I mean, I'm not proud of anybody that I've ever hurt in the past. I'm not proud of any of those things, but I'm kind of grateful that when I die, and I do look back on this life, I'm not gonna be sad that I didn't live. I definitely lived.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because when we talk the mask, right? The mask. And going through my life all the way up until probably 12 years ago, maybe a little longer, as I started my broadcast career, I divorced my parents when I was 15 years old. And
Oh,
I went through it was traumatic, and I think about it, looking back, I don't know how the heck I came out of that, anywhere near sane at that age. But
whoa.
I didn't see my mom, my real mom, for ever again. She died. I never saw her again. Now, we talked on the phone. Okay, we reconnected as an adult after all of this. But here's the thing with that. And my adopted parents, John and Sharon, and stuff, I love them to death. It's just part of life's journey. But anyway, my entire life until my mom's death, I had dreams a lot of me trying to find her. I'm going to get a lump in my throat. These crazy dreams, man. I'm going across the country, going around the world, trying to find her, trying to find my mom, and almost catching up to her. It never resolved.
Wow.
Right? But here, trip on this. My mom and I, leading up to her death, which was about 5 years ago, the last 5 years before that, we were talking on the phone all the time, getting caught up, but I never got a chance to see her. But the dreams stopped, right? Crazy.
Wow.
And after, after her death, I have not had those almost nightmarish, right? Kind of sad, melancholy dreams of some kid trying to find his mom that he hasn't. I never saw her again. The last time I saw her was 12, 13 years old, right? I'm 60. I never saw her again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
Jimmy.
but that's the mask, right?
Yeah.
That's the mask. You don't talk about it. You put it
Absolutely.
in a box. Yeah, you put it on a shelf, and you leave it there. You leave the pain there, and you don't want people. It's the mask. You don't want people to know about this pain.
Right.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, like you're at right now, it's like you're strong enough. You've got a base that's solid enough in your life where you're okay.
Right.
So now is the time to go back and rescue that little boy that must have been so sad and so hurt and so scared. And it makes you, I mean, you were, I've always, since the moment we met, I've been like instant friends, instant brother. But I feel like you're all of a sudden like 10 times deeper in my heart at this moment from telling me this one story. I mean, it's like, oh my God, now you're totally my brother. 100%.
Now, so with that, do the time machine, right? The romantic time machine. Do I go back and change that? No.
Well,
no, you can't. It's part of life's journey. It's who I am now. And, I've raised two beautiful girls and my friend that no, you don't. But that's how you turn tragic into magic, right? You've learned from it. It's painful, man.
But you do the Ogle, right? The pain, the part that's painful, you don't want to deny, because that would be a tragedy. That would be a double tragedy to have not just gone through that, but to deny it forever. So it's good to acknowledge that was painful. That was really hard. But what's good is that you did get to talk on the phone with her, and that you do have these two beautiful girls, and that you came through that. Like you said, you were 15 years old when you divorced your parents. Like that's how did you there wasn't an owner's manual. There was nobody telling you how you were going to survive that. It's by 10,000 acts of grace and miracles that you're here today. So there's a lot of good in that. And I would say from a dream perspective, I think it's true. We don't want to go back and change anything truly, but this is where the dream part gets a little bit trippy, is when it's a dream and you have these dreams about chasing your mom. To me, a dream that leaves us feeling unwell or unbalanced means that the dream's unfinished. And on the level of the dream, with our I like to call it our imagination, we can imagine that we get to finish the dream the way we wished it would have gone. Like going back and saying, hey, Mom, I'm not chasing after you anymore. You come to me. and let's find each other. Let's say the things that we wanted to say. And there's something, because on a parallel plane, this preferred reality does exist, because this reality, yes, we wouldn't want to change anything on this level of reality, but there are parallel planes. There are multiple parallel realities, and there's one of those parallel realities where you're the director of the scene, and you get to say, I'm tired of running, Mom. You run toward me now. And then you get to direct how that scene would go.
See, I think that happened, though. Yes,
Yeah.
that is
On the phone.
that
Yeah.
is such a great the perception of the situation, because that's exactly what happened. And I think all of us, I am not unique, right? We all had messed up childhood. It's just the way that it is. But
Right.
I think that children, and I look back at myself, we have a way of mentally dealing and coping with stuff differently as a child as we do than we do as adults. We have different ways of dealing with it, and we have a shielding way, right? This protective. It's in our DNA. Looking back at it now, at that age, there's no way I should have come out of that sane. No way. But you know what? You deal with it. And
Right.
yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for revealing that, Jimmy. And this is the thing. It's like, you, to me, maybe not to everybody, but I can't imagine there's not anybody who loved you before hearing that story who doesn't love you more. If anybody would reject us based on these deeper truths, then they're not really our people. It's like that Dr. Seuss saying, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And life is short, so wouldn't we rather just have the people who deeply know us? Wouldn't we rather tend to them than the people that would reject us if they knew the truth? It just feels like it's a sorting process as well, to just lay it out there. And and anyway, I appreciate getting to know a little bit about you.
Well, but see, that's why I really enjoyed the way that you started off the book, the way that you did. I told you today, I had some serious self-reflection, reading the first 30, 40, 50, 60 pages.
One day.
Well, and I'm getting there, I'm like, man, she's writing about me. Dang it. How did she know this stuff? But in that, when people look at the mask and they look at the representative,
Yes.
they don't understand how you got to be who you are. And is it empathy? Is it compassion? Is it, it's also smarts, right? It's also intelligence, and it's the way that you can turn around and help others too, and understand them because of the growth and how you got to where you are. I am the same way. I'm the exact same way. So when I say, and I want everybody to listen to these words very carefully, when I say things to people, which is, you can overcome, keep your foot on the gas and get your shit done. Whatever it is in your mind that you want to go and do it. I had my dreams and I chose to go and get that stuff done. I've been through stuff. I went and got it. So when I say I'm not messing around, man. I went through my stuff. So did you, and so was everybody else. So
and this is what I think is important, and this is what I'm learning as we speak. That those words that you just said, those are so important, but they have extra potency knowing what you've come through that led you to that. And from my perspective, my ego would have been just fine writing another self-help book about dreams and just simply talking about kind of the platitudes and the slogans and the, if a door closes, a window opens, and and that's great. Right. But unless you know, I was abandoned on a train station, gonna overnight with no, like I was gonna like, and I know for sure that when we get abandoned, something else will come along, even if it seems like the worst thing. Like there's always something. So this is why, this is partly like, I know in my heart of hearts, I didn't want to just write another book. I've written 10 books, for God's sakes. I can't just write another damn book, even though I love all the books I've written. I'm grateful for them all. I wanted to write a book that would actually move people deeply and get them to think about themselves and have it be truly transformational. And I realized in order to do that, I kind of have to tell the backstory, but not just that little tip of the iceberg about like, here's the platitude, but like reveal the whole iceberg under the ocean. Like, oh, there's a whole world under there that led to that peak moment. These peak moments didn't just come, this wisdom that you have didn't just show up in a vacuum one day. It came from all the things that you went through. And I think just kind of on a dream perspective, one of the most commonly remembered dreams is dreams about being naked in public, and or being like wearing the wrong thing and it being so shameful. And I've always said I believe those dreams they're kind of moving us toward a future with our like human evolution where we don't have any shame in our game, where there is nothing to hide. So if we were to be revealed, we'd be like, cool, hey, check me out. Oh yeah, I forgot my clothes today. Oops.
Well, see, and there is a reason. There's a reason why you glow. And I mention it every time you're on the show, and every time that I'm around you, I say the same thing. You know, you glow, but you do. But there's a reason why you glow. And by putting it out, I'm so glad that the essay format, which by the way, everybody. So when I got the book, Kelly and I talked last week, and the book's coming out and everything. I didn't know what I was getting. I didn't know. No, I didn't know. And I was trying to think how this was going to be done. And you know what, though? To be honest, it could have been a book of dreams turning tragic into magic, and it could have been dream-based. Absolutely. You've got, I can imagine how much material you have to compile something.
Oh, for sure.
But when I found out that this was a book of essays and about life, I couldn't wait to get into it. I really couldn't. It was, yeah.
Well, I have to give a nod to dreams for a second, because in some way, I mean, it is all a dream. Everything in this book is a dream, in that everything in our life is a dream. We're dreaming all the time. We're a dreaming species. There's a particular kind of dream that happens when we go to sleep at night and have those crazy, wild images that happen. And I do write a couple stories in this book that are strictly about those dreams. But everything that I've been practicing and learning and teaching over the last few decades that relates to dream alchemy and dream work absolutely applies to the waking reality as well. So that this waking reality that we're in right now at this exact moment is also a dream. This just happens to be a really kick-ass dream, and kind of a lucid-ish dream. So on some level, it's all a dream. And I hear what you're saying too, that I could have written the book about the nighttime kind of dreams. But I would say that because I did so much work on dreams and doing dream alchemy for so many years, it kind of equipped me to be able to do the therapeutic work, to be able to write these stories. So I'm not disavowing dreams at any rate, in any way at all. It's, in fact, in some way, I'm even more passionate about them, because it's a great tool to be able to know that every character in us is an aspect of ourselves, and everyone who's chasing us in the dream is a part of our own shadow selves. And we can help that process along so that we can get to the point of having more astral travel dreams, where we get to explore other dimensions, so we're not having to just deal with all this, the shadow characters that we've been suppressing. Wouldn't it be great if we got all that work done, and then we could spend all of our nighttime dream time just exploring different dimensions of other realms, and
be a Persephone.
Be a Persephone.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Eat some pomegranate seeds.
Yeah.
Don't take the pomegranate for granted.
Or roofie or two. But here
Ooh.
but isn't that interesting where if you take yourself or all of us right now it's you and it's your book, but I think all of us can relate in this way where we all like to think about the good times, right? Well, there's the bad times too, right? And how you overcome. And so all of us in a weird way can be a Persephone, right? Where that if you stop and think about the bad times, as crazy as it was, well, you know what? The life's journey, that Joseph Campbell heroes thing, you are able to, with your consciousness, to sit and think about that.
Mhm.
That's the best part, right? That we are able to think about it and to work forward. That's the magic of everything. Somebody just wrote this comment, so I'm going to kind of resolve some of this for everybody because I left some stuff hanging.
Okay.
My real dad. So I go through this divorce, right? Like for real. And this wasn't today. It's kind of a thing. Back then, in 1980,
How did you do that?
it was kind of out of my hands. But that's a whole nother. Maybe we'll do a show on it someday. All right.
Mhm.
But anyway, the last day that I saw my dad, and all of this stuff is going down. I'm in Central America. He drives me that we hadn't talked. Lived in the same house. We hadn't talked in like 6 months at all. Okay. Lunch money was left on the counter once a week. It was kind of like that, but I did see him, didn't talk. Passing ships in the night. And so the last day, I know I've got my passport, the military, the government has given me all of my stuff. I'm in a foreign country. I now need to fly back to the United States. The day has arrived. And I packed, my suitcases are packed. He's out waiting in the car. He doesn't knock on my door, doesn't bedroom, none of that. So I walk out, I put my suitcases in the car, I get in, we don't say a word, we drive to Howard Air Force Base, we pull up to the terminal at Howard Air Force Base, and he's just looking dead ahead. It's like, really? All right. I get out of the car, shut the door, he drove away. Didn't say goodbye. Yeah. I don't know how I dealt with it. I really don't, And so,
was there anybody that he connected you with, or you just left you on the side of the road?
This was the legal side of this was intense. Okay, so that's too much of a story. But
This
so
is
then,
amazing, Jimmy.
I fly to Indianapolis. I get picked up at the airport by my future adopted mom, Sharon, and we drive straight to downtown Indianapolis to the Supreme Court, and we go into judges' chambers where there are a couple of attorneys and my future mom and dad, John and Sharon, and we sit down. I'm with a Superior Court judge. I'm 15 years old, and there's a stack of documents this thick, and they're there, and I've got to sign them. And the judge asked me a bunch of questions and things like, "Do you want to change your name?" I was like, "Oh, shit. Didn't even think about that." And I look at John and Sharon, I was like, ah. So anyway, obviously I didn't. I stayed with church. Their last name was Cryer. So anyway, I flipped through and I've got to sign all these pages, and I get to the pages and with my mom and dad's signature on them. And it all just kind of hit me. All this stuff was going on behind the scenes. My mom had to sign off on this stuff, who I hadn't. My dad, this, that, the judges, things. And It was, I'm not, when I say it was that thick, it was that thick. And then boom, 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 boom. I start signing right along my parents' signatures. Yeah. It was heavy, man. So we signed, that was it. I signed the last page. The judge, I'm 15. Think about this for a second. The judge goes, okay, you signed this last page and you've divorced your parents. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Crazy, huh? Crazy.
Wow. Now, I mean, that just
out in the public for the first time right now.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah. And so, but see, here's the thing. Would I change it? Nah. It brought me all the way through to the now sitting here talking to you. Why would I change that? Right? Change any of that, you and I never meet.
Yeah.
Right? My daughters aren't born.
Right.
No. You don't change anything. You don't change anything.
And I bet you became an awesome dad as a result of not having that. What? Yes.
The one thing I eventually, years go by, decades go by, and the email is invented, right? Okay. So I get this email from my dad out of the blue, 1999 or something, 98. And I'm reading this email. I'm sorry. I'm contemplating my life now and thinking about things. And, I wasn't the best dad, and I apologize. I wrote him back like 2 sentences. And I said, you know what? I'm glad. I'm happy for you that you're going through these life things right now. All right. But if there's one good thing that came out of all, I've got a lump in my throat. If there's one thing that came out of all of this, it made me a kick-ass dad. I learned what not to do. And that's what I wrote him. And that meant send. And that's what he got back.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. God, it just makes me, I mean, I feel like I'm in the middle of a really incredible movie, and I want to know, it's like one of those movies that starts at the airport, at the Air Force base, and then we go back and forward to know what was going on with him. I mean, I imagine, I think some of the people, at least this is part of what I'm uncovering these days with people that act so horribly, is a lot of these people there's something, they've had their trauma, or they've had something, their brain is broken. Like there's something that has them. It's not like they're normal people that are well adjusted and balanced that are doing these shitty things. There's something fundamentally broken and wrong that would cause somebody to do that. So we often make it mean that it was something about us that caused them to abandon or to abuse, but it often is not about us at all. In fact, that might have, I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not room for you to be pissed off and angry for a long time, but I wonder if there wasn't some great amount of love, as much love as this man could muster, and your mom could muster, to be able to give you to a family that could love you better than they could.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's talk about a Greek tragedy, right? And so, and I've thought about all of that stuff. And here's the thing. I am not a saint. Far from it. I've got
your last name's Church. Come on.
And we're all imperfect, and every day you just kind of got to look at yourself and try to tighten a screw down and try to improve things. Because I've done some messed up things, we all have, right? And all I can do is just try to live the next day just a little bit better, and that's it, So again, which is why, before I get too sidetracked, the show isn't about me, but this book was about me today, right? And so when I'm reading through that,
that's the best compliment I could ever get.
Well, I told you that earlier, and I'm not playing about this. That nitty-gritty shitty list chapter, I think all of us, everybody, just get the book and read through this, and then write out your own nitty-gritty shitty list, because you're gonna have one. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie.
And then there's the corresponding list that comes afterward. That's the
Yes.
list of all the coolest stuff that you've done and that you've experienced. And you look at how you can draw the line between those nitty-gritty shitty things and the prettiest, the pretty things. It's like there's a list. There's a corollary between these things.
Can I embarrass you just a little bit? I'm going to watch you blush now. Because here's the thing, right? So I've just laid some stuff out, about me, and so did you. But then you follow that up with, I'm going to do this. I don't want you to do this. I'm going to do this for you. You go, I've come to a point where I see now my proudest accomplishments, right? And they exist not despite, but because of my heartbreaks. Right. And so, you wrote 11 books, 5 Oracle decks, and 2 journals. You got a doctorate degree. You've got you spoke at the United Nations. Right. You started a nonprofit organization and for kids, also with the support of the United Nations. Of course, it's TV shows and radio and magazines and all of that good stuff that comes from that. You've been able to see the world, right? You get to hang out with people like me. You have that, and I love this. Been be married to a wonderful man for the last 20 years, right? Deep relationships, and that's another part of this. That once you go through the stuff and you recognize that you are able to have deeper, more meaningful relationships with not only your family but friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I think we want to feel close to people. I mean, there's something very simple about the notion of what causes suffering is a sense of separation, and what causes joy is feeling close and connected. And it's impossible to feel close and connected if we don't put some skin in the game, if we don't reveal ourselves and expect everybody to mind read. I was just talking to somebody today about a memory of, I'm not proud of this moment. I was in my early 20s, and I was dating some guy who was foolish enough to tell me that he loved me. And at the moment that he said he loved me, it was kind of like, wah, wah, wah. Like everything just kind of fell apart. The house of cards dropped, because I thought, you stupid idiot. You've fallen in love with a facade.
Right.
Like, you are a complete idiot, and now I have no respect for you, and now I must go. And he's like, what? Wait, what are you? He did the William Shatner thing, but I realized, I didn't know back then, because I was in the thick of my mask, my representative self. But all I wanted was to be known for who I was underneath it. But I didn't have the wherewithal or the internal musculature to be able to present what was there, because I was still too ashamed of who I was. I wanted you to love me, but I didn't want you to see. I couldn't get real. So I was in quite a catch-22, wanting to, anyway. So realizing now, I wouldn't go back to that time in my life for anything, because now the relationships I have are based on authenticity. They're deep, they're juicy, they go all the way to the core of the earth. I mean, people trust me to tell me their deepest secrets, and the more they tell me, the more I feel like there's gold in each secret, because each secret kind of opens a door to the soul, to the spirit of a person, and to the gifts that they have. And I mean, this is all I really want. Like, all the other any other accolades are kind of secondary or tertiary or quadrupleary, whatever it is, compared to feeling loved and seen. So at this point, having, especially now with this book out, I mean, the fact that, you know, you're still having me on your show, like you knew me before as Dr. Dream, and you're like, hey, Kelly, you're cool. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going to lose Jimmy? Is he going to hate me? And all the other people that are like Jimmy, oh my God. But no, I feel closer to you. And I hope that you feel closer to me. And you shared this amazing story. It's like, this is what it is to be alive, to be soul to soul with each other, and whew, have all the other stuff just poof, gone, done.
Just let it hang out. And why is it that there are so many that are revealing themselves to have a burnt lump of coal for a heart, where they attack people on social media, that they find the time to troll somebody, or
Right.
to say very negative, harsh things, and to go at them when you, the person that you are doing this to, you know nothing about their personal life. You don't know what's going on with them, and you want to take the time. You've got so many precious seconds on this planet in your life, right? And you're going to waste that time to go and go after somebody, probably
Right.
somebody that you've never met, by the way. And
Right.
it just shows this darkness, you know, this thing where this hatred of themselves, right? Where and I just don't get
Right.
it. I just don't get it. I don't.
Well, this is how I would ogle that, because I would say, so I mean, I've had some people say some pretty nasty things to me too. So what I would say first in the O is, this sucks. This is so mean. This is so cruel. This is unfair. You're anonymous and I'm not. So it's not an even playing field. So there's a million things I could say.
Yes. Nobody knows you.
Right. That's not fair.
Yeah. That tips it. Wait, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So what's good about it? I remember the first time I don't know if I can cuss on this show, but the first time I had like true haters online. I've had haters since I was young, that like scathing, die, bitch, blah, blah, blah. But when my first book that I wrote came out, and I all of a sudden got an onslaught, like the book sold like hotcakes, and simultaneously I got a bunch of haters. Die, bitch, who the fuck do you think you are, you know, blah blah blah. And
Right.
somebody said congratulations, this means that your work is actually hitting the masses. You're not just preaching to the choir. The moment you get hate mail, that means that it's your project, your book is having an impact. So that's what's good about it, is that it's not just to my parents and my family who unconditionally love me because they have to. So that's one good thing. And then the L, the looking glass. Have I ever been hateful? Have I ever been spiteful? Have I ever been jealous? Yes, I absolutely have been. Have I been gossip? Yeah, there's been times when I've gossiped, and maybe I haven't said something with absolute vitriol, but the question that I ask in the L in the Ogle formula is, even just to a drop, to a tiny microscopic degree, have you ever done that same thing? Or could you ever? Absolutely. That green-eyed monster is vicious. Somebody sees somebody else doing something like living la vida loca, and their life is just like stuck and funky. They're like, that fucking bitch, she shouldn't have that. So, I mean, I can relate to that. There's not a single emotion on this planet, past, present, or future, that I haven't experienced myself to some degree. I remember, like, this is awful, but I mean, this is probably way too much TMI, and I didn't even put it in this book, but during a breakup of a particular relationship on Valentine's Day, it was like I was in such a pity party, in so much grief and sadness. I had this moment in the middle of my 10,000. I was surrounded on a bed full of tissues. I was in Chicago in a hotel room covered in tissues, like plug me up. And I had this little moment of, oh, it's like to be a serial killer, because I thought, somebody that is feeling this level of despair, this is what would cause that. Oh my God, I have compassion for serial killers. So I don't know that that's true, but it all of a sudden made me feel like in the midst of my despair, there was purpose. I could relate to somebody that would do something so horrific, because what would cause them to do something so horrific is heartbreak,
Yep.
is some feeling of not belonging. And yes, of course, mental disorders, being psychotic, there's other things too, but that heartbreak. So yeah, I can relate. And then what's the E in elevate? Do the part that I can do to make myself better, to do the best that I can, because we can either be bitter or better. So there's, I have to just make the best out of what I have to work with. Just going back to that Cheryl Strayed quote, like, we can't compare our cards to somebody else's cards, but we could play the shit out of the cards that we're dealt. So let me get to the business of doing that. That was a little windy road of dealing with trolls on the internet. I don't approve of that, but I've done the same thing in my own little microcosm, and I can heal that part of myself.
And that's where the L in Ogle could be lie, right? Because if you don't stop, listen, if you don't stop and admit and look in the looking glass and get to that point, then you're living a lie, right? You're living a lie, because everybody can look into that and see. There's no way that you haven't done it yourself. I have.
I am so glad that you said that, because here's the thing. The L is the hardest part of the Ogle, or Ogle, as you say, formula. But that's where the magic is. Like, the tragic doesn't turn into magic until we see that little part. And I always tell people, even if it's just a speck, like, just so if I've gossiped, maybe gossiping isn't the same as saying something hateful to somebody online that would cause them to whatever, but it's on the same spectrum. And the moment I notice that little speck in myself, I go from the kind of the horror of feeling separate, feeling like I'm over here and I'm good and you're over there and you're bad. Well, my ego might feel a little bit better, but ultimately it's the notion of separation is what puts us into a state of like hell on earth. And the moment we're connected to each other, when I see a speck of myself in even the most atrocious behavior, even if I don't like it, even if it's like, God, I don't want to admit that I have that. The moment I admit that, I'm put into this like unified field, and all of a sudden the magic starts to kick in. So it's a very, very strange thing, but it is all about the looking glass. And some people are unwilling to do it. I'll say, hey, have you ever been angry? Have you ever been in a fight? Have you ever wished someone ill will? No, never, not me. Like, okay, well, have a nice life. Get back to me when you're ready to get all the way through the rest of the process.
Yeah. When you're done living that lie, then you can look. Then I'll give you the looking glass, pal. But no, stop with that.
Freedom. The freedom happens on the other. I mean, just like in 12 steps. The fourth step, and I write about this in a whole other book that hopefully will come out later, but the fourth step is where you take an inventory of yourself and you eventually look for what was your part in the thing that was so upsetting. And most people don't ever get past that step. And to me, that was where liberation. The L is also liberation. It's the lie if you don't think it applies to you, but it's also absolute ticket to freedom the moment you see that in yourself, because then you can do something about that. You're not a victim anymore. All of a sudden you've got one little speck of what you can do to make a difference, to change. So that's where the good stuff is.
Well, how do we get to okay, so we've been ogling without the E tonight, though. So yes, and there are a lot about O's and G's and L's.
And L's.
but we haven't got to the E, which is,
We
how
can
do
do an
we?
example. Well, even just relating to somebody who's, if we're saying, wow, I really hate these people that are trolling online and that are saying all this stuff. So the O is what's offensive, this sucks. The G is it's good because it means that I'm reaching beyond the choir. The L is the looking glass. Okay, I see myself in that. The E is how can I elevate my behavior, my consciousness, my what is mine to do with regards to this issue. So maybe I need to clean up the way I talk. Maybe I need to make sure that the words that I use, like Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements talks about being impeccable with your word. Where am I not impeccable? Where am I speaking about myself in a disempowering way? Or how am I talking trash about somebody else? Maybe I need to catch myself and up my game, even if it's just a little micro step. So even if it's just in that awareness, like, whoa, I need to up my game here, then that's the E. So we don't leave it in, wow, I see myself in the looking glass, man, I'm a piece of shit. No, I have every bit of humanity in here. And the moment that I recognize I do that thing that I don't want, that I'm not proud of, then I need to stop stealing or stop lying or start honoring myself, whatever it is. So we can, it's all depending on what a person is ogling. So we can do another example of something to ogle if you want to see another elevator. What would you do?
Well, see, oh man, there's like 1,000 ways to perceive all of this, right? Especially even throughout the day. But there are so many different ways to O. There's so many different ways, right? There's what's really, is it this that is offensive that is bothering me, or is it this part of it, or is it the thing that's in front?
All of it. You give yourself permission to look at the whole 360 of what's offensive. In fact, a full, like, I know there's this one woman that just said, I just did an 11-page ogle. I'm like, right on. She wrote pages of what offended her.
Right.
It's like how it sits in your body. It hurts my heart. It hurts my body. It makes my stomach clench. I feel, all the things. I mean, and even just look at what happened to you as a kid and what you shared. There's like pages and pages of what you could write about what's offensive about that. And we talked about what's good about it is you've become a great dad. And the L, the looking glass is, I mean, if it were me, I'd say, is there any place where I ever abandon myself? Is there any place where I don't take myself, where I don't own myself, where I'm not loving myself enough, or I'm kind of ditching myself off to the side of the road, or whatever dreams I have? And then with that, how can I elevate? Ooh, I want to be an even better dad. I want to be a better dad even to my own inner little boy. Maybe I need to be more kind to the vulnerability in me. So how will you elevate? So if we just did an ogle, it's up to you. What would be your elevate?
I do it a few different ways. One, I would say that okay, this is a pragmatic black and white thing. But when I'm going through, blocking, silencing, and walking away from social media in a direct sense, unfriending, right? It clears that I'm not empowering anybody. So
Right.
by not empowering somebody and not having it change my physicality, my brain, my thought process, throwing me off of my life, that empowers me. I can, right. So that's one part of where I can go away, elevated, going, well, that's never going to get to me, and I know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that. Another way that I elevate is if something crazy happens. I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Something great. I had an issue last year with a plane flight. I had to make a connecting flight. This was international flight. I'm out of the country. And my connecting flight inside of the United States has got its designated time. I'm outside of the country. I've got a canceled flight that I'm dealing with. I can't make my connecting flight. I've got a problem. So I get with my phone at the airport, book another flight that's later inside of the United States. Cost me $1,000.
Whoa.
Well, hold on. And then I get on another flight internationally. I land inside of the United States. My original flight that I thought I was going to miss, I'm running through the airport. I walk there, closing the door. I run out. I put my foot in the door. Right? And I get on the plane. I fly back to LA. Now I've made my right. Okay. I get back to LA. I call the airline that I made that I purchased the ticket with. And they said, no, you can only cancel that 2 weeks in advance. I said, wait a minute. I made the flight. I booked it today. I didn't need it. They were like, tough. Now, this is what I did. This is how you elevate the situation. This is how you turn tragic into magic. I swear totally. I hung up the phone and went, at least I got my flight that I thought I was going to miss. It cost me $1,000, but I got home. Forget about it. That's it. Now, and suddenly I'm elevated. Or I could just walk around, man, this stupid airline. I'm going to write them a letter. I'm going to call my credit. Why? What do I get out of that, Kelly? What do I, honestly, I get darkness. I'm angry. I'm thrown off my game. I'm going to lose sleep. I'm going to wake up the next day and I'm going to be sending, or it's just gone. Right? Just gone. Just let it, just. And I hung up the phone. I agreed with myself that it was over. And I remember I walked out of this office, my bunker. I walked out of that door and I went, shit, I feel pretty good. Cost me $1,000, but I'm not out, I'm not.
Well, there's no price you can put on your peace of mind.
No, just let it go. And I know it sounds crazy. I could have been angry for a week or two, maybe even still mad. Never use that line. Let's tweet this out. Never, why? Just let it go. And that's how you elevate. You turn something tragic into magic and just.
That was skipping right from the O to the E.
Yeah. It was straight O to E. Yeah. But yeah, that's
right. Well, I think that's the advanced 2.0 version, is to be able to be in what's offensive in the moment that it's like, what? And to be able to click right over there. For those of us who need a few steps, you can get to the G. Well, at least I'm alive. At least I got my flight, and then.
How is what I just said, right? My little story, any different than chapter 1 in your book? When you guys were in Italy at the train station, right? It's the same story, right?
Yeah.
The exact same thing. Are you going to get bent out of shape and get upset, right? Or are you going to ride this journey out and see what the end is? Right? It's the same.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, it's a little different, but I think the principle still applies. But Should I say a little bit about what happened there? Do we have time?
Yeah, because everybody's wondering now.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's called Love.
Amor Fati. It's chapter 1. The basic thing is Dana, my husband, and I are traveling. We're at the end of a 6-week journey. We're in Milan, Italy. We'd been in Spain and Italy. He'd been filming. And I'd been leading workshops. We had a ton of equipment because he had been doing a recording project. It was like a ton of stuff. So it was that heavy schlep with like tons of stuff. And we're like, we get on our train and everyone's lovely and fabulous, but there's this one guy that I notice off in the corner that he reminded me, I remember telling myself, he looks like Gru in Despicable Me. Just like kind of the beady eyes and the dark circles and the pointy nose and like the hunched shoulder and like, and I'm like, okay, let's just not look at him. I'm going to look the other way. But I noticed he just kept staring and I'm like, nah. And I hear this scratchy, indecipherable Italian, not that I could really decipher Italian anyway, but I hear what might have been the name of our stop, but it couldn't have been then. So I'm like, is that really it? And then all of a sudden the door closes and moves on. And I realized that was our stop. And I'm asking people in my broken Spanish, Italian, like, did we miss the spot? And everyone's like, you missed the spot, And so I tell Dana, okay, we're just gonna flip around. We'll get out on the next stop and we'll just take the next train coming the opposite direction. That's what you do. So all is well. So the next stop doesn't come for about half an hour. We're like, way the heck, I don't even know where we are at this point. So as soon as the door opens, I'm like, let's get our stuff. I'm holding the door, getting bag after bag after bag, and we're out on the little platform, and the train takes off. The moment we're on the platform, click, 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 all the lights start going out, and then we see the guy, he works in the depot, the engineer or whatever. I see him with his little old-fashioned lunch pail, closing the lights in the depot, getting into his car. I'm like, wait, next train or whatever. And he's like, get out, nah, like, get over there.
Save yourself.
Save yourself. And then he just like gets in his car, his little teeny baby, like tiny European car, and just takes off. So Dana and I are sitting in the middle of this abandoned train station with 10,000 pounds of luggage that looks, I would say to the naked eye, like an expensive bunch of luggage. And we're sitting.
Camera equipment, you've got gear, you've got your luggage, you've got everything.
Oh my God, like 3 or 4 roller bags each. It was just insane. And there's no cell reception to call an Uber or to check out what's happening. And it's dark. Off to the right, it's dark. Off to the left, it becomes dark. And I realize, I believe there's no train coming to get us. There isn't one, like it's closed down. So that's when I bust out in my Janis Joplin impersonation. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train, feeling near as faded as my jeans. Dana
shot you a look. What?
He's like, God, like, would you knock it off? And I'm like, we're gonna die. Let's go out singing.
Yeah, this is it. This is how it ends. We're in Janis.
So all of a sudden, as we're sitting here, just sitting ducks, clop, 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 comes some footsteps toward us. And who is it? But the guy from Despicable Me, Gru. He shows up, and I'm like, oh God, not him. Oh. And I'm trying, because I speak a little Spanish, and so I like, do you speak Spanish? He's like, poquito, little. And he basically, we figure out, he asks if we need a ride, and Dana's like, no, we don't need a ride. And I'm like, Dana, seriously, what other options do we have? We're either gonna die, somebody's gonna kill us while we're sitting here in the dark, or it's going to be him that kills us. But at least we're sort of familiar with him.
Either way it goes, same end.
We might as well
die in his car. Right?
We might as well die with somebody at the hands of somebody we now know.
Oh, man.
So, yes. And Dana's like, no. I'm like, yes. So the guy picks up our stuff like it's nothing, like it's feathers. He's carrying our stuff and out to his car. And it's so
his car is a hearse.
It's a hearse.
You've got Gru right? The dark circles, the nose, and he's driving a hearse. And so,
Hers.
okay, all
So,
right.
and he opens up the back, puts our stuff where there was probably a dead body just earlier that day. And I'm like, this isn't creepy. Not at all. Not at all. We get around to the side of the car, wanting Dana to sit next to him because we'd be sitting in the front seat with him. And Dana's like, no, you sit in the middle. You can talk Spanish. And I'm like, God. Oh. Okay, so here we are. We're driving. And as we start to get down the road, I start to get some cell reception and I start to notice. I plug in the driving directions to the hotel and I noticed that it's saying turn right. And so I show to him, it says turn right, and he's like, no. It keeps chirping like redirect, and he's starting to get really pissed. So I turn down the volume. I'm like, Jesus, where is he taking us? Like, what? Oh my God. Like, we're completely helpless. So I remember some episode of CSI or something, and they said if you're with like a killer, tell them your name because it humanizes you to them. So they're maybe less likely to kill you. So I say, in my broken Spanish, Italian, whatever, my name is Kelly. This is Dana. What's your name? And he says, mio nome Fati. Like, Fati. Piacere. Nice to meet you, Fati. Okay, well, and then anyway, so we surrendered to, literally, I'm in silence, but I'm praying, sweating, praying. Every angel, mine, Dana's, every angel out there, help us. Next thing I know, we end up right in front of the hotel that we're supposed to be at. There's literally like the guy that like is there to greet you with the car or whatever. It's like Dana and Kelly. The
bellman.
Bellman, exactly.
Yes.
So I'm like, wait a minute, he brought us to our hotel. He just went a different way. Oh my God. So as we start to get out of the car, I reach into my purse and I pull out my money and I want to like give him money to thank him for not killing us and for bringing us to our hotel. And he gets pissed. He hits the steering wheel. Like, no, and like he's really gonna friggin' kill me. And I'm like, oh, okay, no money, but hungry? Wanna join us for dinner? And he's like, yes. Like all of a sudden, very happy, very sweet. So I say, okay, great. Meet us. We'll put our stuff away. We'll meet you. We ended up having the sweetest dinner with this guy, Fatih, and this beautiful conversation. I mean, it goes on and on, but he was a very beautiful, sweet soul from Tunisia that just was such a love. And what I learned later, just in wrapping up this story, maybe I should do the Ogle. So the O is what's offensive was that we got ditched at that the voice on the train wasn't clear. Things weren't more clearly marked. And we lost, we could have, something bad could have really happened. And it was very scary. The G is that nothing really did happen. We were okay. And it always seems in my world that the best things happen when things fall apart, when the plan that I had goes awry, and there's miracles and angels that I meet along the way in the most unexpected places. So the L for the looking glass is how do I also in haste close the door on opportunities or people by just simply being too wrapped up in whatever train track of attention I'm on, whatever, like I'm on my own track, and then I totally miss the opportunity at hand. And how do I also totally judge people? Like, oh my God, this guy was an angel.
Totally.
And I completely profiled him. And as humans do, we're coded to do that. But I was wrong. He was a good guy and he saved us. So the E, how will I elevate all of this is what happened was I got back home soon thereafter. I found somebody was talking about the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and this phrase called amor fati. And fati means fate, amor is love. And it's this very important distinction called love your fate. So whatever has ever happened to you, that's what to love. Don't love all the stuff that hasn't happened to you yet, all the things you wished for, the coulda, woulda, shouldas, but every single thing that happens to you, love that, because that is yours. That's your story. That's what to embrace. And so I realized loving my fate is really the whole essence of this book, is loving all of it. It's not just amor fati. It doesn't mean love your fat, which probably should be a good thing. I could probably love my fat a little bit more, but love your fate, because it's what's ours to love. Like exactly what you talked about, Jimmy, about like, this is what happened to me when I was 15 years old. This is mine. This is my story. Like, you don't want to give that away, because look at what you've done with that. So amor fati, love your fate.
The book is called A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. The Art of Transforming the Tragic into Magic. Links for it are down below. I love you, Kelly Sullivan Walden. It's just an amazing book. Thank you for writing this for me. It was just a great day today. Thank you so much. What are you doing next? I know we've got the links out for the books and things, but what's next for you?
Well, I first want to just say thank you so much, Jimmy, for having me on your show tonight. This is a milestone for me. This has been so special. And some of the things that you've shared and that you've said will stay with me for the rest of my life. And you are totally my soul brother, and I really, really appreciate you. And I can't wait to see you one of these days very soon. So what's coming up in my world is besides this book being out, which I'm excited about, I have a retreat to Costa Rica in June. And if people want to go on it and they sign up for it by the end of February, I have this luxury dream package that comes along with it. It's an $800 value, and it's an amazing, it'll be like a tragic to magic retreat. There will be dream work. It'll also be very deep and excavating of whatever the deep story is that we haven't wanted to tell. You get to do some work on that so that you'll transform that into magic by the time you go home. That's my intent. And I also have dream work practitioner training for people who want to become more skilled in understanding the language of dreams and learning how they can work with their dreams, transforming their tragic dreams into magic, and also how they can help other people. So those are some things. Also, I have this Get Her Done writing workshop, because writing has been such a powerful healing modality to me. I let people, it's kind of a month at a time kind of a thing, and it's pretty powerful. So all that's available on kellysullivanwalden.com. And if that's too hard to spell, they can go to ihadthestrangestdream.com.
I've got all the links up for you, Kelly. Have a great, wonderful, amazing night. Go get some dreaming done, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Kelly.
I love you, Jimmy Church. Thank you so much for having me on. You're a dream. You're my brother. Thank you so much.
Right back, Kelly. I don't want this to end, but, here's the thing. Let's just, I say this after every show with you. Let's just do this once a month.
Okay.
Let's just
you had me at hello.
I'll talk. Thank you so much, Kelly. Behave and be well.
Love you.
The absolute very best. Thank you, Kelly. And again, the links for Kelly right below, kellysullivanwalden.com. The links are right there. Everything else we have over on social media and over on our website. What a perfect night tonight. It's always like that when Kelly is with us. And with that, we've got a pretty cool week coming up here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Chris Bledsoe is here. His new book is out. UFO of God. We'll be talking about that tomorrow night. And then two Chris's back to back. Thursday night, it's Dr. Christopher Macklin is here. We're going to be talking about off-planet AI. So tomorrow night, Chris Bledsoe. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Chris Bledsoe, I want everybody to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.